meetings, and councillors who need to use their phone to text, talk or engage in social media must leave the chamber to do so. I turn now to the confirmation of minutes. Is there a mover? Councillor Mutton, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Is there any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Is there a procedural motion in relation to items by exception? Councillor Welsh?
Yes, I would like to move a procedural motion for items on global. Okay, so 9.2, 10.1, 10.3, 10.4, and 10.8.
That would go a little bit slower.
Okay.
I'd like to speak on 10.5.
Okay.
Is there a seconder for the on global motion? Thank you, Councillor Lamb. I put that to the meeting. All those in favour? That's carried. To those online and in the chamber, on global means that those items have been, the recommendations in the reports have been accepted by council. That takes us to, we have a number of speakers registered to speak on item 9.1 and 10.5 and 10.6. Is there a, could someone move that we open the public forum? Thank you, Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Mutton, and invite those speakers to speak as we come to those items. All those in favour? That's carried. So now we go to item 9.1, the Traffic Committee meeting minutes. There are 2 speakers registered. The first is attending remotely, and that is Tony Stanley. We're just waiting for it to be. Here we are. Thank you, Mr. Stanley. If you'd like to address council.
Thanks very much, Mayor Baker. I'd like to speak in support of the Young Street cycleway and pedestrian improvement. This is a relatively small cycleway, and pedestrian lights it's a critical safe uphill connection between the existing Cycle Route 2 and the Neutral Bay Town Centre. At the moment, Cycle Route 2 is basically just a bypass between St Leonard's to the Spit via back streets of Camaray. It doesn't actually connect up to any locations or places to be in between. And the Neutral Bay Town Centre is one of the most critical locations to connect to. As I'm sure the council is aware, Neutral Bay Town Centre is undergoing an urban renewal project at the moment, and there'll be significant works around the old Grosvenor Lane car park, among other changes. A major aim for this renewal project is to make Neutral Bay Town Centre a place where people want to come, hang out, meet friends, etc., like a classic European town centre. And it's impossible to achieve that if everyone who lives more than a few blocks away feels like they need to get in a car to get there. With the town centre on the ridge line of Military Road, it means everyone coming up from the Cremorne area from the north needs to climb up hills of around about 5%. This is why a separated cycleway is so critical, particularly with car speeds at the speed limits of 50 k's an hour. We've got e-bikes and e-trikes, and eventually there'll be e-scooters. They're motor limited to 25 k's an hour, so it's really important to have separated cycleway or micro-mobility way there for people who are looking to get into the town centre in normal clothes to meet up with for coffee and do a bit of shopping and things like that. Young Street's the only viable option for this north-south connection to the town centre because all the other adjacent streets are all very narrow laneways and there's no convenient way to cross Belgrave or Sutherland streets. The new cycleway, particularly if combined with convenient bike parking and integrated into the new town centre design, will allow everyone in the Camaray and Cremorne catchment to safely use micro-mobility options along quiet local roads, the existing Route 2 cycleway, and this new cycleway to travel the approximately 1.5 kilometres uphill trip to Neutral Bay without needing to use a car. Micro-mobility vehicles with electric assistance will also help older and less mobile people who may struggle to walk up and down the hill, particularly if they're carrying shopping, and help them to leave their car at home for what would otherwise be short, easy trips. Finally, the new pedestrian lights to cross Young Street at Belgrave Street are also really important to help people who live 1 to 2 blocks from the town centre to navigate the area too, particularly as Young Street is going to need to carry growing numbers of people who want to visit the improved town centre more frequently. I strongly support the new cycleway, micro-mobility path, and also the pedestrian lights being built. And I encourage council to look at how to integrate the micro-mobility usage it will facilitate into the renewed Neutral Bay Town Centre. Thanks very much.
Are there any questions? Councillor Gibson.
Yes, Mr. Stanley, are you a local cyclist or are you representing a cycle group this evening?
As you're aware, Councillor Gisborne, I'm a resident of North Sydney Council. I live about 2 kilometres away from the Neutral Bay Town Centre.
Okay, I know, I just wanted to clarify that. Good, thank you.
Questions of the Speaker? No, thank you for your participation. So, yes, there's just one more question, Mr. Stanley.
Mr. Stanley, so if the roundabout remains, is it really difficult or impossible for cyclists to use it safely?
Sorry, you have to give me more information about what you're referring to. The new cycleway, as far as I'm aware, doesn't include any work around a roundabout.
Yeah, it removes the roundabout. The new cycleway removes the roundabout, which is totally removes the roundabout. So last time...
Sorry, thank you. You've asked the question and I'll ask Mr. Stanley to answer it.
To be honest, I wasn't aware of the removal of the roundabout. I need to check the notes more closely. Apologies for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Are there any other questions? Thank you for your participation. The next registered speaker is Meredith Trevelyan-Jones on behalf of Willoughby Bay Precinct. If you would please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I'm here tonight representing Willoughby Bay Precinct. The precinct supports cycleways generally, and we've got a couple of very keen cyclists who cycle everywhere in the area, including 2 precinct meetings, I might add. But I'm here tonight to express concern about lack of consultation about the potential removal of the roundabout at the intersection of Young Street and Grosvenor Street. And I really do think consultation is a really important part of putting in this sort of infrastructure. We know it's really hard to put cycleways in, retrofit them into the existing roadwork. Some years ago, when there was works at the intersection of Lodge Road and Ellalong Road, the works were put on exhibition. The local precinct, I wasn't a member at that time, but everybody tells me how they were very happy when they expressed concerns, that there was a meeting held, that there were changes made, and the outcome was something that they're much happier with compared with what was on the drawings. When this went on exhibition, the precinct didn't object to what was being proposed, but we did note that the whole issue of how the cycleway would end at Grosvenor Street was left open. The plans that went before the Traffic Committee show the roundabout removed. They show a wombat crossing across Grosvenor Street on the western side, Young Street having right of way, the pedestrian islands removed. And we would just like that to go on exhibition before council makes a decision to actually proceed with works, not just for precinct members, but I also think local business owners and other residents would like to know what's proposed. Thank you very much.
Councillor Gibson, you have a question?
Yes, or rather than go out again for lengthy consultation, would you be happier with a motion that that the cycleway proceed but the roundabout remains intact?
Yes, if council's engineers can advise that can be done safely, yes. Because I think it's an issue of how the cycleway ends. So the plans at the moment show it ending just to the south of Grosvenor Street, so it sort of bends into Young Street, and the question would happen if you leave the roundabout, what happens with the cycleway?
Sort of ends in a dead end.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, look.
Of the Speaker. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
So we turn to the item, councillors. Is there a motion? Councillor Welsh.
Yes, Mayor, I have a motion. Okay, that council undertake 30 days of consultation with respect to the revised design to the Yonge Street cycling, walking and streetscape upgrades.
And I might move an amendment. That council proceeds with the cycleway while retaining the roundabout at the intersection of Young and Grosvenor Street.
Is there a second for that amendment? Councillor Lapouris. Are there, we may, oh, sorry, Councillor Burke, do you have a question or?
I was just going to make a comment, Mayor, or in the sense that we would need expert understanding of whether we can leave in a roundabout at the same time. And so I'd like to ask a question, Acting Director of Engineering, on their thoughts on whether that is realistically possible. In terms of safety for, in particular in terms of safety for cyclists.
Yes, thank you for your question. What went to the Traffic Committee was the Young Street cycleway between Sutherland Street and immediately before Grosvenor Street. And there was an error made by a council officer in including the plans of that intersection because it's just in draft. It hasn't actually been completely designed, and there was an apology at that meeting for the confusion that was created. So there was confusion at the Traffic Committee, and as a result of including plans that hadn't been consulted on, and we do sincerely apologise for that. So what went to the Traffic Committee was a proposal to do the cycleway from in Young Street between Sutherland and just before Grosvenor Street. We're still doing the design process of that intersection at Grosvenor Street, and we propose to do extensive consultation for 42 days on the exact treatment on what's safe and what's appropriate for that intersection. And the cycleway on that intersection hasn't been resolved yet. So what we're proposing is to proceed with the Young Street, because we've got funding for that. We didn't particularly want to, don't want to delay that because that may jeopardise the project. We'd like to proceed with the what's been adopted and then do extensive consultation beyond that. To address any safety concerns, all the concerns that everyone has, whether it's a roundabout or any other treatment.
So for clarity, the recommendation in the Traffic Committee minutes is just to proceed with the works between Sutherland and just before Grosvenor.
Grosvenor Street.
And Grosvenor and the resolution of the roundabout will be a separate design
Exactly.
and consultation.
It's sort of like a two-stage process. Like I said, we didn't want to jeopardise our funding with transport, and we wanted to get the designs right. The designs haven't been completed. I know there was some, and we apologise profusely for any confusion by including a sketch that shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, because I...
I apologise for that sketch being included and causing confusion amongst staff and the
Have you
council.
got a question?
Yeah, I'm still a bit confused. So you intend to do consultation about that intersection separately at a later date?
Soon, as soon as we get the designs, and there'll be a 42-day consultation period on that intersection treatment.
So that's...
which will be stage 2 of that cycleway.
Probably councillor Walsh and I, we've got sort of different motions here that
Then
might be able to
I
come
think
into
I
one.
think if depending on what each of the movers wish to do, it may be wise if the council is minded that you each withdraw your motion, and it may be that you just wish to move the traffic committee meeting minutes now that we understand and make clear to those who spoke to council that all that is part of that recommendation is between Sutherland Street and just before Grosvenor, and the Grosvenor Street and Young Street intersections will be subject to a separate design and consultation. Okay, then.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved by the recommendation of the Thank you, Mr. Van.
And should we put in there that, should we make it clear?
Well, but the mover may just wish to say we move the recommendation and note that the Young Street and Grosvenor Street roundabout and intersection will be subject of separate design and consultation, and that makes it clear to anyone reading the minutes exactly what we... So you both take that on.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr Van Esten. I will put that to the meeting. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. That takes us now to the next item on the agenda, item 10.2, Q3, review of the delivery program. Or if you wish to bring forward the speakers, but there's the next. Okay. Councillor Welsh, do you have a motion?
Yes, I support the recommendation.
I'll second it.
You wish to speak?
I do wish to speak. Okay. With the operational plan quarterly review, I like to pull out a few things that the council has worked on to show the community. The council worked with NESROC to promote council's position on matters of common interest, things like waste and sporting fields. The council is preparing a new development framework and strategy for the Military Road Corridor, Neutral Bay Town Centre planning study. This is really exciting for Neutral Bay, and I'm really looking forward to see what we're going to end up with in that area. The implementation of the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, just to highlight a few things that have been done. A meeting was held with the Kirribilli Neighbourhood Centre to discuss the wheelchair hire pilot project. An access consultant was appointed to undertake Stanton Library access audit, and drawings are being prepared for the installation of new accessible parking at the Co-Loader Centre for sustainability. So that's terrific. The council participated in the Lower North Shore Child and Family Interagency by a Northern Sydney referral pamphlet being prepared to assist parents and families with information to be produced online and printed for wide distribution. A very successful sexual and gender diversity webinar for parents and carers was held in March 2023 with 100 participants. That really demonstrates the importance of offering support to this segment of society. The council implemented the Family and Children's Strategy. Council supported Gallery New South Wales to run COVID-safe vacation care activities from North Sydney Community Centre in the vacation period for families who needed care. Program included incursions and excursions, and we're all aware of how desperate people are for childcare, and the council is delivering. Coordinated and promoted multicultural activities, first in-person meeting with the LNS Multicultural Network since COVID, with presentations by Multicultural New South Wales about the Regional Engagement Program and MAS National, which delivers programs to support migrant women into employment. Everybody has a story. Visual storytelling ethically and with impact workshop was held in March 2023 with 40 participants, which again demonstrates a need in our local community that the council is working to fill. Participated in the Lower North Shore Domestic Violence Network. The LNS Domestic Violence Networks held first in-person meetings since COVID. The state government funding received to provide information and education about the New South Wales coercive control laws. The council promoted well-being through arts program. They continued the implementation of the monthly Creating Wellbeing program at North Sydney Community Centre's Art Room. Participants explore creativity and learn new skills in a friendly and supportive environment. No prior experience is required, and all art materials provided. I attended one of those sessions and made a brooch. I was going to wear it, but I forgot. I spoke with the attendees who told me how important this program was to their mental health. We were creating art, but it was also very social and supportive. With my nursing background, I really value programs that support people's mental well-being. If we can prevent people from going to hospital with programs like this, it is better for the residents and saves the community money in the long run. Managing squalor, hoarding, and homelessness inquiries with appropriate referrals. In the third quarter, there were 38 contacts in relation to homelessness. 7 outreach visits were conducted and 2 requests to support people experiencing hoarding and squalor. The council established a specialist local history research and inquiry service. Several research inquiries regarding council's buildings were received from architecture students who sought original building plans for Stanton Library and the Harry Seidler design Wiley Wing at council chambers. The Historical Services collection contains a range of paper building plans for both the original buildings and extensions. A digitization project has now been devised for these large format plans. Digitization of Council's poster collection commenced with 27 of 277 posters digitized. Examples include poster from the Ensemble Theatre, Luna Park, and Nutcote. These are being catalogued and added to the digital collection on Council's Heritage Centre webpage. The council upgraded the council website and ensured continuous improvement of technology and content. The website was launched, positive feedback has been received, and improvements are ongoing. Personally, I think they have done a fantastic job on the new website. Manage the Streets Alive program. 13 new gardens were added to the program this quarter, ranging in size from curbside gardens to small gardens within existing reserves. The list goes on, and our local government is much more than just roads, rates, and rubbish. I support the recommendation.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Gibson.
First of all, thank you to Councillor Walsh for that. I think it's always, look, we can just, pass these documents through and the general community are unaware of the depth and breadth of the services that Council provides. I just want to acknowledge something that's close to my heart, and that we'll be reviewing the homeless strategy in the second half of this year. I know that's been delayed, but in the village where I live, in Kirribilli Village, we have several homeless residents, and I think, a lot of people assume in a wealthy area like the Lower North Shore we don't have homelessness, but we do, and it affects quite a few people. And I have residents that are lucky enough to have homes approaching me quite often and asking what are we doing to assist the homeless residents who are camped on Burton Street. So it's wonderful that we'll be doing this review, and we obviously need some new strategies there, because what we're doing at the moment hasn't produced the result that we all would hope for.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 10.5, the planning proposal 1 of 2023, 1 to 7 Rangers Road and 50 Yeo Street, Neutral Bay. The first speaker registered is Effie Carr. If you would please come forward.
Hello. Thank you. Okay, so I'm speaking to you today for item 10.5 on behalf of the Neutral Precinct. In our recent precinct meeting, which was held on May 9th, the proposal by Woolworths for the Rangers Road development was discussed, and it was unanimously agreed that the revised proposal submitted by the developer should be refused. We would like to support the recommendation by the senior planner to not support the planning proposal to proceed to gateway determination. The neutral precinct would like to reconfirm our previous objections to the proposed development, which are the planning proposal is inconsistent with Council's rescinded Military Road Corridor planning study and the objectives of the Council's renewed study for the Neutral Bay Centre. The bulk, the scale and the mass proposed for the site is and excessive, and the proposed publicly accessible plaza and pedestrian link is of compromised amenity and a reduced public benefit. Additionally, as you all know, the recommendation from the North Sydney panel, which considered the planning proposal, is recommending that the development proposal is not supported. So I'm not going to repeat all the reasons. You have all the documents in front of you. You have all the recommendations. We would like the proposal to be refused. Thank you.
Are there any questions of the speaker? Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you.
The next speaker is joining us remotely. It is Ben Craig. Thank you, Mr. Craig. If you would address the council. You're currently on mute, so if you would unmute. We're still on mute. You're still on mute. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. My name is Ben Craig. I'm a director at Ethos Urban. I'm a planner for Fabcot, who are the applicant for the planning proposal. Fabcot initiated discussions with council on this site in 2018 and have been involved in every step of the planning process for the corridor study since then. Following endorsement, the council's endorsement of the corridor planning study in April 21, we advanced the preparation of a site-specific proposal and were ready to lodge in January 22 when the council passed its rescission motion endorsing the study. Given the extensive work that we'd undertaken at that point, we had no choice but to proceed with lodging that planning proposal. That planning proposal was rejected by council and was then forwarded to the rezoning review with the regional planning panel. The panel found that the proposal had strategic merit, but decided not to endorse the rezoning review, principally due to concerns around building height. Importantly, during that original planning proposal, we also undertook our own community engagement sessions, which helped us understand concerns about building heights. This new planning proposal that's before you tonight seeks to better respond to those concerns, and this is reflected in the amendments that we've made to the proposal, including a reduction in building heights from 10 and 7 stories down to 6 and 8 stories, reduced floor-to-floor heights, increased upper level setbacks along Yeo Street to further reduce overshadowing, an increase in the non-residential FSR from 1.7 to 1 to 1.8, and a decrease in the number of apartments from approximately 90 to 60 apartments. So the updated proposal now provides an outcome that's consistent with the corridor study that was endorsed. Now, we acknowledge that the updated proposal was lodged shortly after the regional panel's decision on the previous proposal, and there are a few key reasons for that. Firstly, we're now 5 years into a community engagement planning process that commenced in 2018, and we're keen to move forward with certainty on the site, especially considering Woolworths are the largest landowner on the southern side of Military Road, and they have the ability to deliver the town centre without the need for complex land amalgamations. The supermarket business also needs to move forward because it's become even more pressing now with the closure of the Woolworths Grosvenor Street store at the end of 24. Secondly, our experience with council's rescission motion in January 22 has impacted the certainty required by Woolworths to deliver a plan for Neutral Bay Town Centre that is both realistic and feasible. We don't have a clear understanding of how long the process will take to finalise the new study or the updated study, nor the form that that study might take. And therefore, there isn't necessary clarity and certainty on the future direction for Neutral Bay that we need to rely upon for the purpose of such a significant investment. And finally, unfortunately, the Council's default policy position of not supporting site-specific proposals that are not in line with a supporting strategy has severely impacted our ability to proactively engage with Council's strategic planning officers. They have advised us that they are unable to negotiate or provide feedback on our proposal, and this therefore prevents us from being able to have any meaningful dialogue with Council prior to lodging the proposal.
Thank you. That's your 3 minutes if you'd like to
I've just one more point, if that's all right. Finally, I just want to highlight that Woolworths are genuinely committed to achieving a great outcome for Neutral Bay. They're the largest landholder on the southern side, and we're genuinely wanting to work with the council and community to get there. We've confirmed that through our willingness to update our planning proposal to respond to the community's concerns, and we now have a scheme that's well below the 12-storey height concerns that were initially contemplated in the balance of the corridor. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Councillor Burke?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick question. Thanks, Mr. Craig, for that information.
Yeah, no worries.
Firstly, is the supermarket operating effectively at the moment in the site?
Oh, it has. I mean, it's operating okay, but it has its challenges. I mean, the car park beneath the supermarket is really compromised because it has lower heights that don't really allow a lot of vehicles to get in and out with the height restrictions. And then, you know, from a business operations point of view, internally has its layout challenges, and then from a servicing point of view, it has its challenges with the loading dock, the laneway as well. So there's a number of challenges which are just inherent from an old building, basically.
Thanks, Mr. Craig. And just a quick follow-up question. So what is the main business operation of Woolworths?
Oh, the main business operation is definitely in the supermarket. It's just that Fabcot, who are the property arm of Woolworths, recognise that Woolworths as a company have a lot of land holdings in really key parts of the community. So in response to that, they recognise, I guess, the important role that they might have in creating, viable, really attractive, well-run places for communities in the future. So the primary operation is definitely in the supermarket.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Gibson, you have a question?
No, I just had a motion.
Oh, well, when we have another speaker, so if you turn off your microphone. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Craig, for your participation.
Thanks so much.
The final speaker is Meredith Trevelyan-Jones. If you would come forward, please.
Thank you. So my name's Meredith Trevelyan-Jones, and I'm here tonight representing Willoughby Bay Precinct and also the Neutral Bay and Cremorne Progress Association. I'd like to thank the council officers for a well-considered report and ask that council support the recommendations. I want to talk about height, parking and the proposed public plaza. With the first Woolworths planning proposal, residents campaigned against the proposed building heights of 30 metres to Yeo Street and 40 metres to Rangers Road. Council voted unanimously to reject the proposal. Thank you very much. It was, as Councillor Gibson put it, just too big. The draft Military Road Corridor Planning Study proposed an 8-storey building on Yeo Street, giving 26 metres as the height. The finalised study reduced the number of storeys from 8 to 6 and included provisions to reduce overshadowing. Residents of Yeo Street, directly opposite the Woolworths site, told me they could accept a 6-storey building of similar height to the 6-storey Helm development at the corner of Yeo Street and Rangers Road. That building has a height of 19.1 metres. Woolworths are now seeking 27 metres to Yeo Street rather than 30 metres. They say this is for a 6-storey building, but it's 1 metre higher than what council considered appropriate for an 8-storey building. The council report says 27 metres would result in significant overshadowing, and a height of 21 metres is sufficient for 6 storeys. I agree. All that Woolworths has to do is step the building and follow the fall of the land. It's standard practice. The council report recommends that council reject the proposal in its current form, and further recommends that if Woolworths seeks to progress the proposal, in other words through a rezoning review, which they have said they plan to do, then an amended site-specific development control plan should be prepared to address matters of concern. A DCP can address issues of podium heights and setbacks to minimise overshadowing, and also issues such as reduction of on-site parking and design of the public plaza. A According to the report, the quantum of on-site parking is excessive and not justified in the context of the site's accessible location and the cumulative impacts to the surrounding area. The first planning proposal wanted 65 public spaces over and above the maximum allowed. The new proposal wants even more, 88 spaces. They should go. The report says the plaza and through-site link is of compromised public amenity and recommends an open-to-sky through-site link to Yeo Street and the deletion of the two-storey arm of the retail next to the boundary with 185 Military Road. The deletion of the two-storey arm of retail space would result in a more generous and better proportioned plaza, enabling it to be a genuine community open space. It would also enable development on 185 Military Road to expand the plaza and have retail space opening onto it. An open-to-sky link would provide a better visual connection with Yeo Street, reduce overshadowing and allow for some view sharing with the development on 185 Military Road. These are good suggestions. I ask that you support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the Speaker?
Yes. Do you have minutes from any meetings from the Neutral Bay Progress Association where this was discussed in a community forum?
It wasn't discussed in a community forum. It was discussed in a meeting and minutes are being prepared.
So can I ask who was at the meeting and how many?
Councillor
No, you can't.
Councillor, I'm going to rule that out of order. It's not appropriate that you grill the speakers.
I'm not grilling. When you're representing,
Thank you.
I think it was a very
I've ruled it out of
appropriate
order.
question.
Are there any questions? No. Thank you again for your participation. Is there a motion?
I've got a motion.
Councillor Gibson.
That council continues to engage with the applicants with the view of producing an amended site-specific development control plan which addresses the matters of concern identified in the councillor's assessment report and the NSLPP recommendations. And these include all of the points that are listed on page 3 out of 15, except the one that mentions a reduction of on-site parking provisions. So it's reduction of podium height and overall building height, removal of two-storey retail structure, demonstration of adjacent site integration, provision of a through link open to sky. So, but I want the reduction on parking taken out of that.
Is that the end of your motion?
Yes.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Napouris. Councillor Burke.
Mayor, I'm going to foreshadow moving the recommendation.
Thank you. Will you speak to your motion?
Yes, I will. Look, our residents and anyone involved in the building industry or the development industry must be really confused about how we are tackling the redevelopment of Neutral Bay. Neutral Bay Village, in my mind, and I've lived in this area for a very long time, operates both sides of Military Road. It's all included in Neutral Bay Village. But here we have a situation where we seem to be supporting the progression of the development of Coles, which actually doesn't fit in with our controls, is 2 stories above our controls. And on that site, we're also supporting extra parking. But jump across the road to where Woolworths want to complete their new supermarket, because they'll be moving out of the one that Coles will be moving into at the end of next year. We're saying we don't support your extra parking. I mean, I think if the council needs to keep working with the applicants to solve some of the other issues here, it would be unacceptable for this building to throw shadows onto those residents on the opposite side of Yeo Street, and with a bit of careful massaging, I think that can be addressed. I think we can make improvements to the plaza, but let's remember this is actually, they're proposing to give us a plaza on their land. Last week we seemed to be very much in support of the plaza Coles wants to give it, but that's on our land, not on their land. I have residents saying to me, why does this council appear so supportive of Coles and so unsupportive of Woolworths? It just doesn't make sense, councillors. We have to be consistent. We have two competing behemoths in Coles and Woolworths, and council cannot be in the game of giving preference to one of those supermarket giants. We simply can't get involved in the marketplace like that. But from everything that's been said in this chamber and the encouragement that Coles has got from this chamber, it would be unreasonable to not let Woolworths progress their scheme. And they can only progress it if we have further discussions with them. We shouldn't be refusing this outright tonight. We didn't do that with Coles, councillors. Well, I mean, what?
I just have to intervene. You're talking about two entirely separate things. There was no planning proposal before us in relation to Coles.
But they
have
have
one. It
one.
was not a development application
They have
before
one,
us.
though, Mayor. They have a proposal.
All I'd ask is that you stick to the
All
matter
right, well,
before the council, which is the planning proposal for Rangers
I will
Road.
do that. I will do that. We all know that Coles has a planning proposal, has a DA ready to lodge, and that DA has goes 2 stories higher than our controls permit. We've all seen it. It's been shown at various precinct meetings. We all know that, but we gave them permission to lodge that DA. So they must be thinking that a breach of controls on that site might be acceptable. But here we're saying to Woolworths, well, no, outright refusal, we're not having any more discussions with you. You've got too much car parking proposed there, even though that's exactly what Coles are doing. So, look, let's just be reasonable. Let's be consistent, councillors. Let the officers, and let's remember we have a newly appointed director of, what is the new department? General Manager?
Through Madam Mayor, Community Planning and Environment.
Gosh, okay, so we have a brand new director who might have different thoughts on this than the previous one. So let's keep the conversation going. We don't want this to go. Thank you. Let's keep the conversation going. We don't want this to go back to the planning panel because they've already said that this proposal has strategic merit. We could very well end up with them making a decision and we get no concessions. Much better for council
5 minutes.
to be in the driver's seat and steer this process than risk a determination at the panel.
Thank you,
So
Councillor
I just urge councillors to be consistent in their considerations.
Councillor Mutton, did you wish to speak?
Speaker.
We have over. We constantly hear about the commercial imperatives that drive Woolworths and Coles. That they don't interest me. What interests me is that we develop policies and we apply them consistently. And in the nature of developing a policy, we have a planning study proceeding for the Neutral Bay Village. And with that planning study in full flight, with the consultation processes that it involves, we say, stop. We are going to put one supermarket operator in a preferred position. It's going to be preferred because we're going to let it consider a building higher than we would otherwise allow on land that we totally control. And we do that before the planning study is completed. And now we come to the other supermarket operator, and it's saying, we want to go forward. And council's own staff say, don't let them do it until the planning study is completed. They were voices that were clearly lost when we were considering the Coles application. When we talk about Neutral Bay, we're talking about planning decisions that are going to set what the village looks like for the next 30 years. These are not decisions that should be taken lightly or on the run. Now, I wasn't going to support Councillor Gibson's motion, but in the name of fairness, we should at least invite Woolworths into a consultation process with this council, as we apparently did with Coles. So yes, I support it because of the equities, because of the fairness. But frankly, we've got to stop this ad hocery. We've got to stop this, we believe in planning, we believe in consultation, and then depart from it. We've actually got to practice our beliefs. And our community, be they commercial operators or residents, our community needs to believe in the planning process we lay out. Our community shouldn't be left to feel, oh, it's North Sydney Council. Tomorrow they might take another decision, not in line with the procedures that are already in place. I would stop both Coles and Woolworths until the planning study was completed. And that's not an option. But the fallback position is fairness. Fallback position is at least have discussions with Woolworths. Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any other speakers?
Yes, Mayor.
Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. We may need a briefing, Mayor, on the difference between a planning or rezoning proposal and a development application, because there is a lot of confusion here. We're comparing an apple and an orange. Coles has not yet put in a development application, so we have not seen that they are putting something in that is outside of our planning controls. They may or may not attempt that. And if they do, I'll be saying that it shouldn't be outside of our planning controls, our local environment plan. On the other hand, Woolworths is calling for a rezoning of their land through a planning proposal, which is an entirely different situation. That's my first point, Mayor. But the Woolworths proposal, just briefly, is overly high and intense, and I will not be supporting their planning proposal, and therefore, as I said, I'm foreshadowing a motion for the recommendation.
Councillor Spenceley.
Thank you, Mayor. I support, I don't support Councillor Gibson's motion, and I support the foreshadowed motion in that I believe in structure and governance. I think, echoing a lot of what Mr. or Councillor Mutton said, we need to have a view of what we want the centre to be, what we want the village to be. I note Councillor Burke's comments around the northern side and Coles' proposal not being yet a proposal, a fully formed proposal. And I think we should take a view on both sites equally and engage equally with both parties. So I don't support Councillor Gibson's motion, and I do support the foreshadowed motion as proposed.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? If not, do you care to exercise a right of reply?
Just quickly, maybe Councillor Spenceley, all I'm simply doing is inviting a discussion between, as Coles had. So I would like to reiterate that point. Can we bring the amended motion up on the screen? It's calling for ongoing discussions to help solve the problems. I mean, that's fair and that's good process. We can't undo the decision about Coles. We tried to rescind that and wait till the planning study had finished, but we can't change what happened on the floor of council. Was that the last meeting? I think, wasn't it? So we can't change that. So again, we DAs are certainly different to planning proposals. Councillor Burke, I know all about that. But at the end here, they're different routes, but they're both routes to progressive development. And you know, where we've encouraged one proponent, we've encouraged Coles, and I see the Mayor sitting there nodding her head vigorously when we talk about Coles.
I'm sorry, that is not correct, and I ask that you withdraw that.
The tape
and
will
again,
show
it was irrelevant to this discussion.
Oh.
I was nodding my agreement with Councillor Burke's characterisation of the planning system in this state and the difference between a DA and a rezoning. So I ask that you withdraw and apologise. And
Well,
again, stick
I'll apologise. I won't
to the
withdraw
policy
because
and not the person.
I won't.
You've apologised?
I apologise because the tape will show what it will show, Mayor. And every time that Coles has come to speak here and presented, there's been nods of support and...
I'm asking you to stick to the policy instead of your attack on people.
I'm not attacking
You
people.
are.
I'm just talking about
You're
process.
impugning improper motives.
I'm
and
talking...
we all
Now,
know
you're
about...
impugning me, Mayor.
No, I'm
Please.
not.
Yes, you
I
are.
am
You're
calling you
impugning
to
me.
order
You're
again.
putting meaning into my
I'm
words that
calling
don't
you to
exist.
order again. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Councillor. Thank you, Mayor. If I could continue on, that would be good. All I'm asking for here is that we don't give an outright no tonight, because it will go to the planning panel, and I think they will progress it. They can appeal, and it can be progressed. If anyone has read, Councillor Lepouris sent me a copy of a wonderful document that I'd read a few weeks ago. It was a newspaper article about Chris Minns, our new Premier's view on how this city's going to grow. He doesn't want the suburbs to spread. He wants more development near main roads and close to town centres. Exactly what's being proposed both by Coles and Woolworths here. So we're likely to see some changes at state government level, but if we refuse this now, it just doesn't look right. Let's give them the opportunity to continue discussions and continue to adjust these things. And the idea that Coles haven't lodged their DA yet, but they've shown plans. It's very well known. They've shown plans at 2 precinct meetings. The plans are there, and the plans clearly show that, and everyone saw those actually before we voted on giving them permission to lodge their DA. Those plans are there, they're drawn up, and they exceed our height limit. So, councillors, we need to be consistent. Let's just give Woolworths the opportunity to continue the discussion.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's lost. Councillor Burke, you have a foreshadowed motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Lamb. You wish to
I'll
speak?
reserve my right.
Of reply. Are there any speakers to... Thank you, Councillor Spenceley.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the motion. I believe in structure and governance around planning. This is the correct thing for us to come up with a structured town master plan, and we should do that before we, as a group, approve any changes to the height DCP. My objection to the northern side, to Coles's proposal, is around governance and agreeing to lodge a DA for something that we have no clarity on what actually is being proposed. I just want to clarify those two differentiations. I don't believe we exercise good governance by signing a piece of paper to lodge a DA on part of our land without actually knowing what that is. I believe that's poor governance, and I believe what we're doing tonight is good governance. Thank you, and I support the motion.
Any other speakers on the item? Councillor Lepouris.
Councillors, I just wanted to say, I think this is a good development. I think we'd be getting a great outcome here. I don't know why we're always against building up. I don't understand how we're going to solve housing affordability in our LGA if we just keep knocking back these developments and saying, no, they're too high, they're too tall, we don't want it, there's too much overshadowing. We'd be getting a plaza out of it, we'd be getting some good benefit from the VPA. So I think that this would be a good development. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Before I just give Councillor Burke his right of reply, I'm going to speak briefly on this. First of all, there is a deal of confusion around this table about the New South Wales planning system and the idea of good governance within it. At any time, any landowner or applicant can exercise their right to make an application under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, whether that's for a development application or whether that's for a planning proposal, which is a rezoning. And Councillor Burke was utterly right when he said that there was confusion here, because what this council gave to Coles the last week and the council meeting before that was the permission to lodge a development application under council's current vision for Neutral Bay, also known as the Local Environmental Plan 2013. That sets out the vision for the village. No applicant is required to wait until there is a planning study. It is entirely up to them what they wish to do and what they wish to exercise. That is how our system operates. There's an absolute straw man argument here. In fact, I would say that you're at danger of considering matters that are entirely irrelevant to the matter that are before us. This straw man argument between what's fair for Coles and what's fair for Woolworths, it's irrelevant who the applicants are. Utterly irrelevant. What we're here to look at is, are we prepared to support a great deal of excess in relation to our current planning controls by way of the proposed rezoning? And so I would like to firstly say that it was an excellent report by council staff. It was detailed, and the matters raised include the provision of affordable housing. And I will have to say I admire your passion about housing affordability, but I think that you are entirely misdirecting this council if you think that private supply by private developers will address housing affordability, because North Sydney is the case study over the last 10 years.
Point of order, Mayor.
For that not working.
Point of order, Mayor. Sorry, but you're just doing to Councillor Lapouris. You're just being personal to him,
Not
which
being
you just
personal,
said.
I'm rebutting an argument that he made. Thank you,
Well,
Councillor
that's
Gibson. and
exactly
will
what I was
continue.
doing. I think you should
I'm
withdraw and
not-
apologise to
Thank
Councillor
you.
Lapouris.
I don't rule in favour of your point of order. So this is there is an opportunity for Woolworths to engage with council's planning staff and to engage further. The most important way they could do that would be to amend their planning proposal and to work to prepare a site-specific DCP that addresses all of the matters that council staff have identified and the community have echoed in their submissions, not least the provision of some affordable housing. And so on that basis, I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo those thoughts. I was going to make a couple of those comments that Woolworths at any time can lodge an application. I support building up, Councillor Lapouris, as we do with Coles, if it's reasonably within our local environment plan. So building up is good. We want proportionate infrastructure. We want to protect local residents, their solar access and their amenity. And so we are for development. I'm against overdevelopment, and that's my difference that I would state here tonight. So I'd like to recommend the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Put the motion. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Oh, those against? Thank you. That was Councillor Gibson, Mutton and Lapouris. That brings us to the next item, Planning Proposal 8 of 2022, Post-Exhibition Report, 15 Alistair Street, Cremorne. There is a registered speaker, Catherine Clark. If you would come forward, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. My name is Catherine Clark. I'm a co-convener of Harrison Precinct. I just wish to reiterate the precinct's support for this motion. I don't know if anybody's had an opportunity to look at this building. It is a beautiful example of an Art Deco building, and it should be preserved, and its loss would be considerable to the neighbourhood because it's only one of a few that are remaining. So I commend the motion to you. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank those councillors and all the council staff that worked on this. It's been very much appreciated, and it's been really good to bring it to this point. So thank you.
Any questions of the Speaker? No, thank you very much for your participation. Councillor Welsh?
I move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Burke. Is there any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to the next item, 10.7, Sydney Coastal Councils Group, Council Representative. Yep, Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation.
There's an item 3 that requires us to nominate a councillor to sit on the executive. Are there any volunteers?
I'll nominate Councillor Santa.
He's been nominated in item 1 for for the group. There's a second position. Councillor Welsh.
I'll take the position.
Councillor Burke, will you take on the,
Yes, Mayor.
the second? Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Gibson. Any discussion? Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Council for the opportunity to be on the Sydney Coastal Councils Group Committee. It was an interesting experience, and I would like to thank the Sydney Coastal Council Group for the work that they do.
Motion, all those in favour? That's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 10.8. Councillor Welsh, you're going to step out or stay? It's current appeals and results. Is there a mover for the recommendation?
Yeah, I just have a question.
Well, before you have a question, I need the item to be moved. Is there a mover for the recommendation?
Well, I want to move If you just, can I just grab the papers, thanks? I have a motion. The recommendation that's there, and a second point, that council be, that a full report on the NCAT appeal and the costs be presented to council.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Lepouris? Is there any discussion? I'll put the item. All those in favour? Item is carried. Councillor Welsh can return to the room. Thank you. That takes us to the notices of motion. Councillor Welsh, you wish to move a motion?
Yes, I have a motion. Okay, that North Sydney Council write to Environmental Health New South Wales for advice on the best practice for minimising harm from vaping. Seconder?
Seconder for that motion. Seconded by Councillor Burke. And Councillor Welsh, you speak to your motion.
The environmental health team is involved in a broad range of functions, and it is responsible for implementing the environmental health provisions of the Public Health Act, Public Health Regulation, Public Health Tobacco Act, Smoke-Free Environment Act, and the Smoke-Free Environment Regulation. Let's get advice from the experts.
Sorry, Councillor Burke.
I agree with Councillor Welsh. I want
to move an amendment.
We'll get to you. Councillor Burke has the floor.
And Mayor, I'd like to add that my understanding of vaping is that it can be a therapeutic product that helps some people, but there are a lot of people that it is causing harm to. And so I appreciate the motion. I want to acknowledge Councillor Santa's motion comes from a position of looking after the health of our community. So I thank him for that motion, but I do think we need to get a little bit more evidence before we vote on a complicated health issue here at Council. Thank you.
I had an amendment.
Councillor Gibson, you
I
have an
know. Councillor, is Councillor Santa still still present?
Yes.
I wanted to move Councillor Santa's motion, but delete the words. So in point 1, and any future yet to be determined smoking methods.
So delete any future yet to be determined smoking methods.
So just cigarettes and vaping.
And you've got to take out as well.
Put an and in there. I know it's hard for Councillor Santa because he's online and he's over in WA, I believe. But
okay, I'll just see.
It's most unusual that he wasn't allowed to move his motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I'll ask if there's a seconder for Councillor Gibson's amendment. Councillor Lepouris. Councillor Gibson, you speak to your amendment.
I think it was extraordinary that we didn't let Councillor Santa speak to his.
About information. Councillor Gibson, if you would take your seat and I'll explain where we are and procedurally. The motion was that we seek further information from the Department of Health in relation to vaping. The amendment has been moved and it is not contrary to that. It is separate to, which is that the motion put on the agenda by Councillor Santa be moved, but in item 1 in paragraph 1 of that motion, the word "and" be inserted between the words cigarettes and vaping, and the words "and any future yet to be determined smoking methods" be deleted. That's the amendment. So it's the motion 1 is calling for further information and effectively a deferral of this matter, and the other is to move ahead with it now. Councillor Gibson.
I think we can move ahead with this now, and I congratulate Councillor Sander for bringing this forward. When I first introduced the no smoking policy in our CBD, that was 2 or 3 years ago now. Vaping, we didn't consider vaping then because, quite frankly, it wasn't much of an issue. It wasn't much of a thing then. Vaping was only just starting. But I think all of us, you know, we don't need another opinion and a report. We just have to be up to date with the news and read the papers and just look around when we walk through the streets at the number of young people vaping. And I'm sure there are some therapeutic benefits to vaping. Probably does help some long-time smokers wean themselves off cigarettes or be an alternative to cigarettes. But I think, and all the info, I follow this very keenly and very thoroughly. And it's in the papers almost every week. The amount of young people that have taken up vaping is skyrocketing, and it cannot be healthy to breathe anything into your lungs. And it's simply teaching these children to teenagers and young people to depend on sticking something in their mouth, whether it's a cigarette or it's a vape, to, you know, as a response, I guess, to stress or anxiety, or as a social outlet, where you know, neither vaping or smoking is acceptable. I think we should support what Councillor Sander has put forward here and just move on with it. And I congratulate Councillor Sander for the thoroughness of his report. It's already got enough detail here. And the federal government has already announced their policies. They're not waiting for any more reviews or information. They've already done it. And so they've already done it, but council supporting what the federal government are doing just gives, when it comes to enforcement by our rangers, it just gives our rangers, it just adds some strength to the argument. So I think I would urge you all to just move forward in the spirit of what Councillor Sander has put here, and let's just be decisive and get on with it.
Councillor Welsh.
Yes.
Speak to the amendment.
I would like to foreshadow and go back to the original motion that I put up.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, it just stands as the motion. We deal with the amendment, and if the amendment is lost, then we go back to your motion. Okay. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a little bit of confusion here, personally. My understanding is that we are proposing a change in policy to be put out on exhibition. Effectively moving forward and saying we should adopt this policy, but we want community consultation. So my position would be that we should get expert advice before we push forward with that position. So I would support Councillor Welch's motion and vote against the amendment.
Thank you. I'll be coming to Councillor Sander next. Councillor Sander, and then to
Thank you,
Councillor
Mayor.
Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. I would like to point out to my colleagues, I must confess I express some disappointment at this foreshadowed motion. On the New South Wales Government's website, they state the following. People cannot use e-cigarettes in smoke-free areas under the Smoke-Free Environment Act 2000. They can use e-cigarettes where smoking is not banned. Smoke-free areas where people cannot smoke or use e-cigarettes are all enclosed public spaces. And they define those public spaces as outdoor public places and all enclosed public spaces. Outdoor public places within 10 metres of children's play equipment in outdoor public swimming pools, spectator areas at sports grounds or other recreational areas used for organised sporting events, public transport stops and platforms, including ferry wharves and taxi ranks, within 4 metres of a pedestrian access point to a public building, commercial outdoor dining areas, and in a car with a child under 16 years of age in the vehicle. Using e-cigarettes on public transport vehicles such as trains, buses, light rail, ferries is also banned under the Passenger Transport Act. And they also state that there are fines that can be issued for people who breach those rules. I was actually approached before submitting this motion, my motion, I was actually approached by an officer in the Department of Health who asked me what our council was doing. He happens to live in North Sydney. What our council was doing to complement what the New South Wales Department of Health has already introduced. So with reluctance, I won't vote against the motion, the foreshadowed motion, on the understanding that this will just merely bring about a delay in what I think is generally accepted by the community would be good practice by council.
Mayor, could I just clarify that Councillor Santa supports the amended motion?
Sorry, he's spoken and he said that it's clear what he said, that he will reluctantly support the foreshadowed motion on the basis that, and so we're in the debate now. Are there any, and the next speaker is Councillor Mutton.
That's not what I heard.
At a very high level, the amended motion is, having listened to Councillor Santa, a simple restatement of the law. The motion that is to follow is for us to find out what best practice is. So that leads to an informed decision. So I oppose the amendment and support the foreshadowed motion because it's a step to an informed decision.
Are there any other speakers? If not, I'll put the amendment.
Thanks, Mayor. I must have misunderstood Councillor Santa. I thought he would be supporting his own motion, albeit with a slight adjustment. I feel as though maybe some councillors around the room haven't read this properly. We've been given all the information that we seem to be seeking in the foreshadowed motion. It's all here. It's the federal government. The federal government has already done the investigations and made the decisions. It's just council supporting what the federal government has already adopted. So I can't see if the federal government's obviously done their homework. So we just look in the very thorough background information that Councillor Santa gives. The federal government has recently announced policies to address the problem of vaping, including stopping the import of non-prescription vapes, increasing the minimum quality standards for vapes, including restricting flavours, colours and other ingredients, require pharmaceutical-like packaging, reducing allowed nicotine concentrations and volumes and banning all single-use vapes. So the homework's already been done. Let's just get on with it, councillors, and I urge you all to support Councillor Santa's motion here and vote for the amendment.
put the amendment. All those in favour? That's lost.
Did Councillor Santa?
Councillor Gibson, I'm chairing, and I can see, and he did not raise his hand, right? All those in favour of the amendment, that's already been lost. So now the motion is before the council, Councillor Welsh's motion, which is to seek further information. Unless anyone wishes to speak to that again. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just clarify that I'm very open to what's been put in the motion by Councillor Santa, but I just have a few extra questions I'd like to ask an expert in the area so that I'm 100% comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give you your right to reply, Councillor Welsh, but I'll
Okay.
on the motion. Just is there any other speakers? No, Councillor Welsh, your right to reply.
Okay, it might very well, the advice might very well come back with exactly what Councillor Santer has already put forward. I'm just saying, I want to go to the experts because the Environmental Health New South Wales, this is their job, is to advise, it's actually part of their remit, is to advise councils on these kinds of policies. So let's go to the experts and let's get that advice. Thank you.
Thank you. The right of reply having been exercised, I put the motion. All those in favour? That has been carried. And that brings us to the close of the meeting. Thank you all for your participation this evening. Thank you, Councillor Santa, and we wish you farewell.
Recording stopped.